From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
And welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya. Tonight we're talking about See You Yesterday. It's a 2019 movie. It's available on Netflix. It's directed by Stefon Bristol, written by Stefon Bristol and Frederica Bailey. And it's a sci-fi film where two Brooklyn teenagers, C.J. Walker and Sebastian Thomas, build makeshift time machines to save CJ's brother, Kelvin, from being wrongfully killed by a police officer.
Yeah, so turn back now if you haven't seen this movie, because we're going to be going through the whole thing, and then you can tune back in and see what we think, and then you can let us know what you think.
Definitely. You can pause, stop, come back at a later date after watching it, and listen in. So what was your number one takeaway, Surrey, from See You Yesterday?
Oh, man, so close to having a photograph timekeeping device in this time travel movie.
Yeah.
There was two instances of it,
Yep.
so it's good to see. They had the memorial program.
Yes.
Changed quickly to be wavered between Sebastian and Calvin, so that was great to see. But I also take from this, there seems to be a blindness in how difficult some of these technologies actually are to do, which prevents people from appreciating how mind-shatteringly awesome they are.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is the case here, where there's two teenagers that have got time machines, and they're talking about quantum compute chip boards and making antimatter. Like there's at least 3 or 4
high-tech stuff.
Insanely high-tech piece of equipment here, and they're worried about winning a science fair so they can get an MIT scholarship.
Yeah.
They don't need an MIT scholarship.
But I suppose...
MIT should be coming to them as lecturers.
Yeah, but they haven't yet done it, have they? You know, like they haven't yet time traveled at that point in the story, like with the MIT thing.
Even getting any sort of results at all with those packs, which is like even putting those packs together represents a level of technical and physics knowledge. Yeah, but hang on,
you and I, if you and I rocked up at MIT with backpacks and were like, "Hey, we can travel through time," they'd probably go, "Yeah, sure, no worries, see ya."
Oh, for sure.
Here's the door. Bang.
I totally understand you've got to find some door entry, but the thing is, they don't need to go to MIT. What are they going to learn?
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, fair.
I saw this movie
But they're from the Bronx, man. They've got to get out of the Bronx.
It's time travel. I saw this one, Tomorrowland. I think it's a Disney piece.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. That's right.
An amazingly funny line in there, which I don't think is supposed to be funny. But so some kid has developed a jetpack.
Okay.
A functioning jetpack that flies them around.
Yeah.
Like you want in the future. Yeah. Like a real jet, not like
that sort of promise that we had when we were kids. That jetpack
like an actual jetpack.
Yeah, from the 50s sort of idea.
And he's like working on it, and his dad like says, "Oh, just stop wasting your time building that jetpack and get like," you go, "Dude, your 13-year-old son has built a jetpack."
Yes, yeah.
This is
patent it and you're off.
Even if it's not a fully functioning jetpack, a 13-year-old doesn't just create a jetpack that mostly works at all. They would make a backpack with bits of cardboard stuck to it, is what it,
Yeah, that's what most people would do. I would do.
So this movie sort of falls in that same way.
Just because you picked on that, I kind of liked how this movie didn't need to, again, because I'm not the science guy, I'm more the film guy, that I liked this movie at that starting point was just like, we're not gonna reveal all those mechanics. They're two teenagers and they've built these time travel backpacks.
Oh, totally.
And I mean, at the start it doesn't work, but then it works pretty quickly. But I was really I kind of like that because I'm just like, let's just make it happen. Like, because I love time travel movies and I just love the concept of time travel. So it's this idea straight away for me. It's like, yeah, get it moving. And it was very Ghostbuster kind of homage, those backpacks. They looked like them, didn't they?
There were a couple of scenes in that seemed to be sort of throwbacks to other movies as well.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, yeah.
Definitely the Ghostbusters backpack was a...
And as you said, the photo, it's like Back to the Future, which we have talked about previously on an episode, so go back and listen to that. But yeah, that idea of, the photo kind of changing. It's awesome.
Yeah, and then when Sebastian gets shot in the guts, and then future Sebastian sort of flickers and fades away.
Yeah.
That's again Back to the Future-esque.
Yes.
Because it kind of hurts your brain if you try to think too hard about how that should actually all work. Yeah. Particularly because his backpack dropped to the ground.
Yeah.
He faded away and spat blood. I don't know why he spit blood at that point. And then the backpack fell over, but his clothes didn't.
No, I think his clothes did.
No, it's just his backpack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just the backpack.
Yeah, so why would he...
Time travel, timekeeping.
Yeah.
It's the way time travel works, I told you.
Yeah, I did think that about the backpack. Because if the idea is he's just died, why wouldn't, everything disappear? Because then it wouldn't imply that he's died then in that time. That means he's never come back. He can't come. He can't be there in the present.
You got to be. This is
so it would be everything. It would be
brain
everything.
Exploding warnings here because you end up with these things. He dies then, which means he wouldn't have come back.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So his whole thing.
She wouldn't have been there either. So they would have they should have just popped back into existence back in their garage, making plans, or just being sad about him being shot in some mysterious accident. But then they wouldn't have gone back to cause that.
But then she has not died in that past, which is then the present. So she should be there. I think in my mind the way time travel works is she should stay. But with him being shot and dying, he should vanish. But so should his backpack. Like his whole thing should.
I disagree. He should just stay there because it's clearly they keep their memories and their clothes and all sorts of things. So when they go and change time and they go back into the present and the present has changed a little bit, they still remember what the old past was before the change.
Yes.
Which means that when they're out of time and they've gone back in time,
he didn't remember dying, but...
No, exactly. So they're disconnected.
Yeah.
They should stay disconnected from the time stream. So maybe it should actually have been that nothing happened. They go, oh, okay, it's okay. But when they went back, suddenly they rejoin the time stream. And then he goes, oh, I've got a really sore tummy, and falls over dead.
But that wouldn't make any sense because in that time, if you go back in time and you die, your younger version dies. That means your current version can't exist, can it?
But all your memories would be gone too.
Yeah, everything would be gone. But for him, they are gone because he is. So in that moment, he sees it and he dies. Blah blah blah. He disappears. Like it was good that he disappeared because he technically would not be there because he's dead there on the pavement from previously, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but later, Surrey in this movie, he doesn't remember dying when she changes.
That's because they did a time splice with a quantum motherboard.
Yeah, but she goes back and fixes that so that he doesn't die, and then comes back, and then he goes to, oh, hang on, how many times have you been going back?
Why does she still remember him dying though?
Because she's kept going through it.
That doesn't make sense. So, anyway. As for all time travel movies, inevitably you end up in this same sort of conundrum where you're trying to go, how can her memories and actions and everything persist even though everyone else's has changed? And then
I need a whiteboard, okay? I need a whiteboard to explain it to you. Yeah, and this is a podcast. It doesn't quite work.
Doc Brown in Back to the Future 2 explains it very nicely on a whiteboard. He goes, here's your normal timeline. Yeah. Somewhere back here, it branched off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. Anyway,
but that's
got to tell you then, was this a hope, a warning, or an experiment?
Well, I think warning because this film, the time travel, unlike something like Back to the Future, we just kind of say, okay, time travel movie versus another time travel movie. This one doesn't have Like it's very clear. Like each time they go, they do mess with time, and there's a result, and then that result becomes deadly. You know,
it's
in
a
this
bad
film,
result every
like
time.
it's very quick. I mean, it's a very different tone, this film, to something like Back to the Future, anyway. But I just think that in terms of warning, it is a warning about time travel, like the dangers of time travel. You and I have just gotten into a bit of a like, we can't really even explain how things happen. And I guess this is the danger, going to MIT and saying, hey, I can travel through time. And like, I mean, really, what are the repercussions if humans do eventually have that technology? It could be, you know, we could just end our species, couldn't we, overnight?
Some weird paradox.
Yeah, some weird. Or is it the concept that, like, that's the thing, it's more dimensions, you know, in a way. Like, that's another way I always think of time travel. Like, maybe if you did travel back, you would travel back, but if you altered something, you would be then coming back to an altered future that's actually not the future you came from.
You'd have essentially two timelines, one where you disappeared and never returned. And everyone there is going, whatever happened to Mark?
Yeah.
He just disappeared one day.
He just disappeared.
One of his crazy experiments.
Yeah.
And then there'd be another timeline where there's two of you.
Yeah. That's right.
Or you'd go back to one where you went back in time, but then you returned from a different timeline. So it looks as if you've come back to the same one, but you haven't.
Yes. Which Marty McFly in Back to the Future kind of does. Like, it is a question, isn't it? But there's no two Marty McFlys. So
there is momentarily before he jumps in, because he turns up and sees himself get in the DeLorean and go back in time.
Yeah.
And then he's just there, which means he has arrived in a timeline where the Marty McFly who left that timeline never returned to that timeline.
That's right.
He probably returned to a separate one altogether.
Yeah. So, and I've been watching the comedy Sci-Fi Future Man, which does this. Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg's kind of little TV show. And that's what happens in that. So every time, I won't say any spoilers if anyone wants to watch. It's a pretty funny show, science fiction funny show. But that's the thing there. People have come back from the future, because in the future it's like this war and they're trying to save that. And because a cure happened in our modern day. So, but then when they change it, the future is just different. Like, it's never back to what it was when the whole story started, you know? So in that concept, it's kind of like, but then when they go back to the actual future in terms of 100 years from now, where the people come from, there is other versions of them in that timeline. Because they never travelled back because the future changed.
Have you ever watched that movie? I think it's called About Time.
Yeah.
Sort of maybe a romantic comedy.
Yeah, it's a romantic sci-fi. Yeah, I really think that's a really good film.
It's not really a romance movie, but there is romantic elements. It's not really a science fiction.
Well, I think it's a romantic sci-fi. I reckon that one.
Yeah,
I reckon it mixes the two.
But I quite like that one because it points out that he can't go back before the birth of his child, because he did one time and he came back and he had a different child, and he's like, oh, I really like the other one.
Yeah. And
then he talks to his dad. He just said, yeah, well, you ever wonder why I have all the time, but, you know, I'm always hanging around with you kids? Because, you sort of get... Once you pass... every point in time is changeable, is what they're saying in that one. And so if you go back before, 3 days before, the following 3 days will be different 3 days. Which means that if you go back before a significant event that you actually want to have happen, it may not actually happen. Or it may not turn out the way you want it. So the birth of your child, you may get a different child.
That's right.
Which could be a benefit. I mean, if the child that you had was not enjoying itself for some reason.
Yeah, well, I think in that...
Maybe it would be good to go back and let your child have a new shot at the genetic lottery.
Exactly right, yeah. And I mean, so anyway, I think it's a warning because this film does do that. But if you're out there on social media, hit us up. Am I right or am I wrong? And what you think about what type of science fiction this is. So what have you been doing, Surrey, creatively? Anything that you want to catch us up on?
Oh, I've just about to launch my first blog post. So the gravityundone.net is going to start having blogs on there.
Yep.
And these are blogs around the various, you call them intellectual properties. So I've got some about science fiction type topics that spacebrains would be suitably matched with.
Yeah.
Some around my creativity posts I do, some around the books I've written,
Yep.
and so on. The idea being that you're turning up to gravityundone.net, you don't just get these lovely podcasts, but you'll be able to get sort of interesting reading material, and it'll help people search and find us if they're searching on, top 5 science fiction movies or classic science fiction movies or something. They might come across a blog post and then go, hey, what's this spacebrains business? Yeah. So that's what I'm doing now. So that'll be released. Well, by the time this episode goes out, that'll be out and going.
Mm-hmm.
And that's accompanied with some social media activity, which will be sort of small parts of that blog, useful commentary being released so that people get a bit of a taste of what's going on.
Yeah, cool.
Otherwise, I'm continuing writing, and I've watched a little bit. I finished watching The Witcher. Not very science fiction.
No.
It's kind of some elements because like The Witcher himself is a mutant that was created from genetic manipulation by magic, but what science? But sufficiently advanced technology, indistinguishable from magic. And Rick and Morty. I don't know if you do you watch Rick and Morty?
No, I know of it, but no.
Oh my god! Okay, that's science fiction on steroids and speed. That's just amazing. There was the original clip of Rick and Morty was a poking fun at the Back to the Future, Doc and Marty. Rick and Morty became Doc and Marty.
Right.
The other way around. So go on to YouTube and do a search for Doc and Marty, the original Rick and Morty clip, which actually spawned Rick and Morty. And if you haven't seen Rick and Morty, it's on Netflix. I know it suits my brain. It matches in very nicely. My wife is less enthused by it, but there you have it.
Sounds good, man.
And yourself,
I'm in the thick of editing that short film, which again is not science fiction specifically. It's a psychological thriller, and it should be done by the 30th of January, so a couple of weeks from now. And then we'll just have a soft launch because then obviously it's going to go into the festival circuit. You can't put it out there. The festivals aren't happy, so I've got to enter into a few different festivals. So, and for me, the plan is just that will happen over 2020. So I'll go and pick some specific festivals that it matches. Either maybe might be genre wise or ones that it's worth putting it in. They might be films that big festivals that might get you something in return, or just it'd be good to have that as a badge that it was a finalist or something like that at a particular festival. Yeah,
the exposure is always useful. You always get some sort of feedback from somewhere.
So that's what I'm in the thick of, and then at the same time, be like yourself, writing. So back on the tools, so to speak, planning the next feature from the one I did last year. So moving on to another project that way. So that's in the background, and also there's a couple other things that my wife and I are going to do together as well. So there's like
probably enough information there, right?
Yes.
Oh no, sorry, an art piece.
So like a documentary art piece. So in the film world. So again, none of them really adding up to sci-fi, but I briefly mentioned it late last year that there is a web series sci-fi thing that I want to do, but the way my brain works, like I have to my space brain, how that works. I kind of get I need to be a bit hyper focused on a project. So in terms of this editing, it's hard for me to then think about other things.
Yeah.
Like I can tinker along and write down ideas and stuff, but when I have time's not of the, I'm limited on time. So it's sort of like if I have some spare time, I'm editing, and because I really do want it done by the 30th of January as well. So I'm trying to get to that finish line. And I'm enjoying that. Like it's been a good process, and there's some really cool footage and things like that. But there's that web series I want to, and with that, I'm looking at a possibly totally different model. I might do it as a collaboration with either other writers or actors, like actually kind of get them doing it a little bit more like a indie film where you don't necessarily finish a script and you do it a bit more like ad lib, and so you get the actors kind of bring in, like, you tell them what you want, you tell them the character, and then they just kind of run with it. You know, that may be doing it a bit differently like that. Yeah. So more on that, and that is completely sci-fi.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, an alien invasion. It's an alien invasion idea. Yeah.
Man, yeah, that sounds great. And speaking of film festivals, after having gone to that the Little Planet Film Festival, that was good fun.
It was great. It was good.
We want to get involved in more.
Yes, we do.
If you're like to show films to science fiction films in particular, to groups of interested people and friends, certainly feel free to invite us along. We would love to come and share your enthusiasm.
Definitely.
Of course, we are around Mandurah and Perth in Australia. So.
Yeah. I think we could travel a fair bit in Western Australia, couldn't we?
Oh, for sure. It'd be worthwhile.
You and I, we're adults. We could jump in the car and go somewhere.
Yeah, we go to the Collie Film Festival for science fiction freaks.
Yeah.
So someone in Collie make a film festival called the Science Fiction Film Festival.
We
for
are
freaks.
going niche, aren't we? We're really niching down. I like it.
If you're a coal miner in Collie, I don't want to hear about those guys in the windmills that are just down the road.
No. They wouldn't like science fiction.
That'd be a difference. So anyway, let's moving on. Yes, I agree. Warning, it is. I would suggest there's a certain experimentation with it, like about tinkering with time, but because it's always it seemed to pretty much always be a bad outcome.
To be bad, yeah.
Or, you know, sort of one of those one step forward, two steps back sort of thing, you know. Save Sebastian.
That's probably
lost her brother again.
Yeah, that's probably a really great way to put it, actually, isn't it? That's what the film sort of did. It's like they fixed one problem but created other.
Yeah, which leaves you going, well, probably would have been better off just leaving Calvin and listening to Sebastian at the start. And then instead of trying to get a scholarship, just lottery tickets. Like, come on.
Well,
it seems obvious to me.
Have they not watched Back to the Future and seen what, you know, Buzz does? What does he do? He gets the almanac, hands it to his younger self, and then in Back to the Future 2, he's a freaking multi-millionaire, isn't he? With the girl. Yeah. So he's in his penthouse apartment. So they obviously haven't watched it. I mean, just go back in time and buy some lotto tickets. I mean, honestly.
Simply what I would do.
Yeah. Anyway. What, you know, it's just thinking, if you're going to invent time machine, that's what you should be into. The money, really, don't you?
Invariably. I mean, you go back enough time, just a bit of compound interest would be fine.
That's right. Yeah. So, well, I mean, yeah. Look, I won't keep going on that.
Let's get into the plot. So, what happens in this movie?
Yeah, what actually happens? Sorry, what on earth does happen? So, just to set us up, but I mentioned before, director Stefon Bristol. If he's out there listening, be great if you reach out and let us know your intentions of this film, See You Yesterday. We do know that Spike Jonze was a bit of a mentor, a bit of a producer, part of this. Spike Lee.
I'm not sure who Spike Jonze is.
No. Well, I'll talk about that another time. But yeah, Spike Lee, great director and filmmaker on his own right, got involved in this film as a bit of a mentor. And obviously Stefon wrote it with Federico Bailey. And I've just put down our two key casts. So we've got the characters Claudette CJ Walker, and that's played by Eden Duncan Smith. And then Sebastian Thomas is played by Dante Crusoe, something like that. So if either Eden and Dante out there, they can also correct me on that pronunciation. So to start us off, we have the introduction we have Sebastian and CJ, and they're in this situation where they're talking to camera, a CCTV sort of camera, and they're telling us that they're going to time travel and how it works. They're kind of giving us a real quick rundown, and they're standing in this pretty dirty, dingy, you know, full of all sorts of broken down stuff.
A Coke can in particular.
Yeah.
And a bike.
Alleyway, you know, and in a suburban area at this point in time. And they have these awesome backpacks that, as I said before, are a bit like the Ghostbuster backpacks. And they kind of get ready to travel, and they push all their buttons, and they have these awesome watch things with their smartphones, and the packs do nothing. Sorry, they go nowhere. And I think the bike and the Coke can shake a little.
Yeah, you get a bit of a ripple effect going on there.
Yeah. So we cut from that. It's Brooklyn High School of Science. I don't know if that's real.
Brooklyn High School of Science.
That's the name of the school that they are in. It's not just Brooklyn High School.
Doesn't have a glee squad.
No. And they're in this classroom and this got me excited, was that Michael J. Fox is the teacher. And he's also reading a book, which is an old book about time travel. So it's a good little nod there. And the bell goes, it's summer school holidays, so every other person in the class is just like, get out of the way, losers, and they're out of there. But these guys have got a little plan to steal some of the equipment and to, I suppose, help their packs. And as you keep saying, to get into MIT.
Yes. They've got to get their packs going, because they had a problem with a proton leakage, which, needed repairing.
Mm. And so they've still in this, I think Seb had sort of gone off, or CJ talked to Michael J. Fox, kind of trying to cover it up. And then he came and so Michael J. Fox says, whatever you took, just return it, not broken. Mm. And they're like, oh, okay. And they leave. And I think they say, I didn't write the line down, but they do say something about time travel. And actually, Michael J. Fox goes, time travel, great Scott.
Yes.
So there's a little homage. Yeah. Little homage to, obviously, Back to the Future, which is awesome. Anyway, they're kind of cruising around Brooklyn, I believe it is, and they have these kind of teenage dramas. There's a boyfriend.
There's an ex-boyfriend of CJ's who kind of is... He's basically talking trash.
He is talking trash.
Trying to sort of big note himself and downplay CJ, which... she doesn't appreciate.
Yeah.
She's a bit hot-headed about these things.
She
apparently.
is. She kind of like attacks back. Anyway, so they sort of have a little confrontation but move on. And then really the two of them, they're planned for summer because I think is it the grandfather? He's like, what's your...
Sebastian's grandfather.
But Sebastian's grandfather, it's kind of like...
The wonderful sort of Jamaican accent.
Yeah. And then it's like the plan for summer is science. What? No, it'll be working. You'll get a job, boy.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the accent.
No, because that would be like the sort of some weird Mississippi thing. He had the Jamaican.
Yeah, he did. And when the guy... Sorry, I jumped over that. When the guy is harassing her, the ex, the brother actually comes up with his friend.
Calvin rocks up and...
Yeah.
Calvin with Hobbs, I assume his friend's name was.
Yeah. And they sort of they have a standoff and he leaves and stuff. And then they're all arguing about it. Kelvin's arguing with CJ. And the next thing we know, we have this kind of police officers walk up. Mm. And they're like, is everything okay here? And it's not about calm down. There's definitely an air of you guys are making a commotion and you can't make a commotion.
Yeah, you're making us feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to have to put you in handcuffs.
Yes. So there's kind of a bit of an initiation there that the world they live in, which I think is a reflection on US society at the moment, that idea of the black and the white and the police corruption a bit and police bias. We've seen it a lot. We've heard a lot about it. Black Lives Matter.
The big problem I have, and I really thought about during this movie, which is probably a nice thing to say about this movie, is I thought I can't imagine seeing that happen. It's so outside of my experience.
Yeah.
For example, I was pulled over for speeding in Melbourne.
Right.
I was doing over the limit. Sufficiently over the limit that it was not without...
Deserved being pulled over.
It was fair enough to be pulled over, shall we say. And, I just got out of the car and walked over and met the cop halfway along, and he, asked me a couple of questions about, how you going? Whose car is that? Because it wasn't my car. I hadn't stolen it. But he didn't check into my story.
Yeah.
Whose car is that? I'm just borrowing a friend's. Normally I ride a motorbike. Total truth. But it was just, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
When he's just pulled over some guy speeding in a sports car, who's just freely admitting it's not his sports car.
Yep.
But that was it. It was just, okay. Here in Melbourne, that this part here is 80 up. It doesn't go to 100 until further down the track here, and there's cameras here too, so you want to look out. Have a good, summer type of thing, and I'm like, okay. Got back in my car and thought, okay, nice.
Yeah.
And drove off. Didn't think anything more about it. And I don't know if there's any people who have come from a different background who perhaps, for example, if they were pulled over for speeding in a sports car that they clearly didn't own, would the police run the plates, call, try and get in contact with the person, like heavier questioning, if not immediate suspicion of, well, you can't just be driving other people's cars around like this. So as a result, I can't even. I was just like, it doesn't even feel. And this is obviously the privileged position I come from. Is that I can't even imagine being treated like that. I've got a couple of friends who are police officers, and they've always been perfectly pleasant and
but
like it just doesn't seem. I do not doubt that it is the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that to put it in perspective, I remember reading about. She was a single Aboriginal mother in Perth, and she actually was due in court for some reason and was pulled over by the police, had a baby in the backseat, and they pulled her over, and she actually said to them, "I'm going to court for this and that," and basically they gave her a yellow sticker. I think they said something like there was child protection issues with the car and the child, and it was this whole ruckus about it. She missed her court appearance and got in trouble for that at a later date, obviously. But she was dealing with and she spoke out about that. Well, the police were actually like, and this was like 8 a.m. on a Monday morning or something. Like it seemed like a deliberate kind of honed in, let's pull this car over and make this person, have a hell of a morning.
Have a hard time.
Yeah, have a real hard time. And I think your story is kind of the opposite of that. Like you didn't get a ticket?
I didn't get a ticket.
So you didn't even get a ticket.
I have in the past received speeding tickets. So
I have too.
I don't just skate off without them, but even those have been pretty straightforward. You're speeding, did you know that? And I just always respond, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, probably.
Yeah.
If you pulled me over, I'm going to trust you.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, well, don't do it again.
Yeah,
there's your ticket.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yes.
That happened once when I was on my motorbike. I was going, it was a 50 zone, I was doing 80. Oops. So that's immediate loss of license. Again, it was just, it's this here. Ironically, it was part of the Albert Park Formula One track that I was on. So there you go.
That's your excuse.
Well, my excuse was I was actually trying to find a pub. Which is what I told you. I'm looking for a pub.
I'm looking for a pub. Look, I'm already drunk and I'm looking for
But see, again, he's like, okay, look, in 28 days, you're going to have to not ride your bike for like 3 months or something.
Yeah.
Which I
did.
Complied entirely with.
So maybe seeing a scene like this is uncomfortable because and I agree, being that I'm a white Australian, that you see this and you feel, as I said, like this scene, you got the air of, well, so what? There's brother and sister arguing down the street. Are they not allowed to walk down the street arguing with each other? If they were two white people, would the police even bother to come up with them? And so it gave us, it gave the film a real intensity of, okay, there's something like racial here going on. There's racial profiling. It was interesting as well because one of those cops was also a Black American as well. So I thought that was kind of it wasn't just like two white cops, it was actually... There's obviously, this is a bit of a
police culture.
Police culture. That's the whole point. It's not like it's just one cop against, Black Americans. It's actually like all of them. There's a culture of it. If you're black, you're going to be in trouble. And so, I mean, coming from, again, our privileged position, you do, and I feel really uncomfortable seeing stuff like that because you think, if it was white people walking down the street, would they do the same? And some other films have touched on this as well, definitely. So, the film is dealing that there is racism in this society that the film is presenting. So then Grandpa is saying to them...
they get to the garage.
Yeah, they get to the garage.
Grandpa says, what you doing in here, children?
You are doing the accent. I don't know if we should do...
Maybe you want to... spend more time... No, I can't do... Okay, there we go. I was about to devolve into something that was kind of a bit Irishy. Let's avoid that. If you're Jamaican, or you have Jamaican descent and you're able to do the accent really well.
Hit us up with some voice recordings.
Give us some recordings so that we can just correct us quite a lot, because we need it.
Listen to our podcast, watch the film, and then send us recordings, okay?
Yes, you feel free to correct us on all things.
The writer tries to set up here that, you know, the pace or the intention that they've got for this story is that, you know, their issue is if they need to get out of this society, this part, and the way out is to go to like MIT or Stanford. And I think it's all mentioned in this scene that they have to focus on this science project, because if they can do it and win the science fair when school goes back, then they'll get their scholarships to these places and get out, and their life will be very different. I really loved
this scene. Grandfather was so good. Like the way he spoke to them, he spoke with respect for their abilities and their intentions. And when he said, you know, this could be our chance, when Sebastian says this could be a chance to get like a scholarship to one of these places, his grandfather's not like, oh, don't be silly. Oh, that's Italian. Dear.
Just stop it. Just talk it through.
I'm going to stop now. You know, I have a bit of fun, but I can't do it. So, he says, instead of saying, don't be silly, concentrate on something that's real. He says, ooh, I like a scholarship. That's a great idea.
Oh, okay.
Well, in that case, you've got 1 week to go. Fine. You know, you can do all of that and get this finished, but then you've got to get a summer job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought it was really good. It really painted the grandfather's relationship here with Sebastian. He was kind-hearted. He was respectful and encouraging.
Yeah.
Which is quite surprising. Most of these, what are you doing here, messing about with a time machine, creating antimatter again? Ugh, you're just wasting your time doing that. So, like, what? No, okay, so that was quite a good scene.
And it rolled in, the scene sort of rolled out. And it's funny because it's funny what happened next, because I was actually even thinking, you know, they've got these packs, because they sort of explain the packs a bit more and what is involved and this and that. And I actually did start to think, well, hang on, where have they gotten money from? You know, like, it's literally what I thought. And then the next scene, it's quite nice because they sort of like, they have this knock on the door, they roll up the garage. There's like two awkward teenagers and they're trying to talk in a bit of code.
Yeah, we want the juice.
Yeah, and the impression is like,
orange juice.
You're thinking, they do drugs, you know, which is funny because that's like the stereotype, isn't it? It's like the white person looking at, they do drugs. Like they have to do drugs to make money. And the scene then turns on its head in that they are actually running like a computer shop, aren't they?
Tech shop,
Yeah, a tech shop.
Repaired aunties.
Yeah, not just computers, mobile phones.
Laptop, mobile phone batteries, all he wanted.
He was after juices for his mobile phone, I think, wasn't he? Yeah. It was quite nice to see that, and they obviously run a bit of a tight ship. We see that on the news that police have there's been riots and police shot a young black man, and there is sort of riots about this happening.
I was surprised because I was expecting that to be a feature of their time travel. Like they go back and they see it happen or do something.
Yeah, I did too.
It felt a bit like a Chekhov's gun. Yeah, I'm expecting to see that pop up later.
I think they were just trying to, again, you know, like with that earlier scene, and then that
set the atmosphere.
The atmosphere was building that there was tension out there, you know, and to probably explain.
It's hard
what was
on them
happen.
streets.
It's hard streets, yeah. And so CJ and the brother, CJ's sort of told off because she's come home late. Her mum tells her off. There's no dinner for her. She missed it. And it's her night to do the dishes, so she's like pissed off at her mum, typical teenager sort of stuff. And
Mum, I'm making a time machine.
I know. Well, you can go back in time and be home on time.
Yeah, I know. That's what a mum would say. Like, well, how did you finish that time machine so you can come back home on time?
That's right.
Mum.
And so she goes and does the dishes. Her brother, Kelvin, comes in to help her, and they kind of have a moment. And he actually tells her she needs to learn to control her temper. Like, she's smart, but she needs to control the temper a bit.
And she gives him a little grammar lesson about the difference between misogyny and misogynistic.
That's right.
In the use of in the English language.
Yes. So we get a grammar lesson in this movie. So if that's your kind of thing, check it out.
Yes. It's clearly the dynamic between these two.
Yeah. So they...
Other movies where there are great grammar lessons include...
That's a whole other podcast, sorry.
Yes.
Anyway, so they're inventing, and I liked the name of this, it's called temporal location movement. And they explain how that works. And they go back a day, and she sees her boyfriend with the slushies at the deli.
Yes, chucks the slushies on his face.
Because
she's got the hot temper. She's a bit of a... She expresses herself eagerly.
So they've gone to all this effort, they've time travelled, and she throws slushies on her on her ex-boyfriend's face.
This is sort of the closest you can come to killing Hitler when you can only time travel back one day.
That's right. So anyway, he's not happy, he chases them, they run out, and they actually pass their other cells in the deli. So they're sort of like, they're just letting us know the rules of the time travel here is that, well, their old cells are there. And as he chases them, he actually gets hit by a car.
So they get struggling on the street. He gets hit by a car and rolls off. Yeah. Fortunately, he's okay. He gets up. So that was a bit of a tense moment there. Where it's like,
oh, is he dead?
Oh, is that serious?
Yeah. How serious is it? So their packs then are like expiring. They've got time is up.
About 10 minutes.
Only got about 10 minutes in the thing. So buying a lotto ticket is a bit hard. Anyway, so now they're back in the present, and they actually have, which I liked. They had a good debate about why, we can't, like you just said, like if we're going back in time, are we? I think actually he does say it to Sebastian. Does say it. He's like, are we literally going back in time to throw slushies on your boyfriend? Like, is that the point of time? What we've invented here? And I liked that because it's like, yeah, what would you do if you had a time machine? Is that all you're going to do? Like, go back to do what? Like, what are you actually going to do?
Yeah, I know that's true, and even such thing as winning the lottery is kind of a bit petty.
Yeah, it is.
It would help with everything else you want to try and do, but yeah, the funny thing is, and this is something that always gets me with time travel and our generally accepted view of fictional time travel, is they said if we go back a day, if we make any changes, we can't make any big changes because we don't, the future will change.
Yeah.
And yet what we have to realize as human beings is that counts for what we're doing now as well.
I know. We could drastically make a decision now, couldn't we? Like we could honestly do something like quit our jobs.
As
run away
podcast.
As this big paying job. But we
walk
could
away from all this money?
Yeah, that's right. We could just run out and leave our families behind.
Yeah, we jump a plane to Bali
and just never come back. Like we could go throw a pie in a politician's face.
Could do.
And possibly get arrested and thrown in jail
But you don't
tortured.
know.
But you don't know. So how are we changing?
Yeah, small change now can have radical big changes in the future. That's always the thing that comes up in time travel.
So technically we already have it.
You go back 20 or 30 years and you make a small change, you come back again. Could be Marty goes and does a small change, big difference. But we have that opportunity every single day.
Yeah, we do.
And that's really not pointed out very much in these movies. Every single day you get to make a choice, and every choice will have dramatic changes for the future.
But sorry, I just want to do it now. I don't want to make little changes in my life now and they make it, in 30 years there's a payoff. Oh,
I know, and that's why
I want now.
Well, this is exactly why I'm still working now.
Yeah.
Back when I first got a job, I
started saving.
Started doing exactly what I was told to do, and then I went, I'm not going to wait. That's 20 years till I'm 45. Oh my God. Too long.
So far away.
And here I am at 45 thinking, I was such an idiot. Damn it.
If only I'd saved $5 a week, I'd have a couple of thousand. Damn it.
Anyway. Yeah, such a boyfriend.
There's a barbecue.
Yeah, it's the barbecue. Yeah, is this the 4th of July?
Yeah.
Or is this a pre-4th of July? Is it because the science presentation is the day after he got shot or something? So I think it's like the build up to the 4th of July.
I think so.
And they're having a barbecue.
The ex-boyfriend does show up at that.
Yeah, Calvin doesn't know how to play dominoes, as it turns out.
He's not feeling right either, for some weird reason.
Yeah, he has a his buddy comes and said, "Oh, we've got to do some job." No, that's never explained exactly why they leave.
No.
But it's just, clearly he's got work to do. So, has a confrontation with the ex-boyfriend again, who's got a broken arm. And the woman, who I think is Calvin's possible girlfriend. Because they're sort of talking, I think they're talking about her, and he's saying, I'm going to hook up with her. I'm going to tap that, I think.
Oh.
Which I think is, cool kid talk for, I'm going to make her my girlfriend.
Yeah.
I think that's a roundabout way of doing it. There's a few steps involved between not tapping, and girlfriend, but I assume that's the basic process we're talking about here.
Yeah. There's steps involved.
I don't know what they are. I'm too old.
Anyway, so then Calvin and his friend are kind of like walking down the street, and kids, I thought they were kids, bumped them, and they're like, "Hey!" And the kids kind of disappear, into the suburbs sort of thing. And then,
the problem with kids these days.
Yeah, and then
blah, blah, blah.
There's a police car on top of them, and they get out, and they kind of say, put your hands up, and I think it's then maybe
we get a rear shot where we can see that the cop has got his hand on his gun in the rear holster.
We do,
and they're saying, they're being very intense.
Yes,
like
rather
than just sort of saying,
"Have you seen anything?
Can we ask you some questions? What's going on?" It's like, where did you just come from?
Yeah.
Don't talk back to me. Do what I'm saying.
Hands up.
Do it. Hands up. Do it. Do what like instantly escalating.
Yes.
And then we get that rear shot. We can see he's got his hand on his gun, so he's edgy. And then it cuts away. We don't have to watch this poor kid get shot.
No, and then, but what we then cut to is it's the funeral for Kelvin.
Yeah, it's a memorial.
Yeah, and he was shot dead by the NYPD. Mistaken identity is revealed, but he's gone. And the mother and daughter, CJ, have a kind of moment about this, about the brother, about their dad. It sort of comes up here. And, I think there is something about, you can't change like the way the world is sort of thing in their conversation. But CJ's kind of...
I think Mum said something along the lines of, if I could just go back to yesterday, or if I could just go back... to when he was alive and say one last thing to him, sort of thing.
Sort of.
And CJ says, yes, I could.
Yeah. So then CJ visits his grave with Sebastian, and they're debating about going back to save him. And she, in this time of, I suppose, a few days has kind of gone by, she's modified the design so that it can go back further than a day.
Yeah, she's improved it. It'll go back like a week.
Yeah.
And they can only do it once per day.
Something like that, yep.
Yes, because she's making antimatter.
Ooh, I like it.
Pure energy.
Yep.
Which is entirely true. Again, this is one of those moments that you don't need MIT. You could be teaching at MIT. You could get a tenured position.
You'd be running the world.
You'd be getting
CJ.
a Nobel Prize
yes.
for physics, I think.
And CJ kind of says to Sebastian, well, I'm doing this with or without you, So they go back. They go back to save Kelvin, and the plan is they'll do it together after they work things out between each other, and they work it.
She rocks up to the garage.
That's right.
To see what's going on, and he's there, and he basically sort of says, "Yeah, I totally get you. You want to change this. This is something momentous that we can do." And then there's 2 plates of food there, and Nana has made it for us,
which was a nice touch.
And they sort of, make up. And go, okay, we cool. Yes, we cool. Like I don't think I could ever get away with a line like that. Saying someone, "Hey Mark, we cool."
Yeah,
because it'd be like, "Hey Mark, am I old and white?" Yes, sorry, we are both old and white. Damn it!
But we're going to go to a montage, Surrey, of you and I making out our backpacks.
Yes.
And that's what happens. They have this like musical montage.
Yeah,
of
they
them
fix it up.
Fixing up the
They
backpacks.
double the thingy, what's it, and
Yeah.
they tune the proton injector, and they change the
I love
spin on the
doubling
electrons.
things and quadrupling other bits and ripping hoses in half and sticking them in other parts and all that sort of stuff.
This is incredible work.
It's a good Rocky montage, you know, like you're modernising the machines, making them a hell of a lot better.
Then we get was it sort of a replay of the start, so they're filming it.
Yes.
We're going back in time. And then we get actual, zip, zap, zoop. They have a cool sort of psychedelic trip, a puff of sort of orange, yellow smoke, which is a strange touch. Mm-hmm. But there you have it.
And they're running to get to Kelvin, but they kind of come across Jared, the ex-boyfriend, again. Oh, and it's in the park with the markets and stuff, and they kind of like got to dodge him and go through it. And it's just one of those perfect examples of like, here they have a very clear cause that they have to achieve, or a goal that they have to achieve as character, but then this is just a brick wall in front of them.
It's never so easy.
No.
And that's true to life, isn't it? How many times have I said to myself, why is it never easy? This should be easy. Right. Why isn't it easy? And the answer is because I'm in a narrative.
That's right. It's your narrative. And so they don't make it. They're like running towards it and you hear the gunshot.
Yeah, and they're at the end of the street.
Yeah.
And they don't see it. They hear the gunshot.
Yeah,
and
it's too late. And then they're doop, starts beeping again.
Back.
They pop back.
Yeah, no, and they... Well, what do? They
pop out, they're out of energy.
Yeah, they're out of energy and they need to wait, and they've got another problem that they might bump into themselves if they go back.
That's right.
So they need to sort of...
Come up with a plan.
Come up with a way of doing that. And you're going to put something... I'm going to say, CJ says, well, we stop the robbery.
Yeah.
At Kotlin's. Now, Kotlin's a programming language for Android phones.
I don't know if it was the deli. I don't think I took note of that. But they go to... We did have this friend at the school, which we didn't talk about earlier, but there was a friend who sort of was into CJ. There was like a little minor. So they actually go to his place because his science experiment is about energy. And so they need to like get a supply from him. And...
this was so they could split time streams so they didn't bump into each other.
That's right, yeah.
Into themselves.
And there's a great quote there. I think it's there. He says, "You need my shit to make your shit, but you ain't going to tell me shit."
Right.
I had to write that down because I just thought that was a really cool teenage line, like a teenage, a good way a teenager does talk to other teenagers, or that's the way I sort of see it. And then the only way he'll really work with them is if CJ goes out on a date with him.
Yeah, he doesn't ask her.
No,
she just volunteers.
She volunteers, and he's very excited about that.
Yeah, he's pretty amped about that.
And he has a quantum boards like a lobotomy. Like it's this massive amount of power grid for their backpacks.
Yeah, and that really reminded me a lot of Star Trek talk. They're just sort of throwing these words around, and you're like, none of that makes any sense.
No.
What you're saying there is just kind of...
I think they're buttering over the science.
Yeah,
aren't they?
it is. And that's what I mean. It's a Star Trek moment where they just sort of say, "Oh, we'll do such and such with the blah blah blah, and we'll invert the blah blah blah."
Supercharge it.
And you kind of go, "Okay, that sounds convincing enough." Yeah, you got quantum chip matrix
a few big
motherboards
there,
that are high energy intensive.
Yeah,
you able to splice timelines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That's not really the point. The point is, it's going to be simple. We're not going to have the extra complication of them running into themselves going back in time.
That's right. Anyway, CJ returns home after that. She's finding that due to her brother's death, like the riots and obviously the tension of New York is kind of picking up a bit of a gear. There's a bit more violence on the street.
The Black Lives Matters.
Yeah, a bit of that sort of happening. Yeah, so it's just kind of continuing on that race theme, which does motivate them because it does feel like the world is a bit tense for them. So then they travel back to stop the crime happening. So they go back. They ring up the police when they're back in the old time and to report the robbery. So they do it before it happens. And so they kind of like walk to the deli or run to the deli, I think, after reporting that. And
So
they're
is that
standing there.
bodega?
Okay, yeah, bodega.
I'm not entirely. I've never heard bodega except in these sort of American things, but we would call it a deli.
Yeah, deli.
It's like a
Must be a reason.
7-Eleven.
Yeah.
It's not a 7-Eleven. It's a privately run.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So they're there, and then the time is going past, and we see a couple of guys like enter the
Yeah, they're looking shady.
deli.
They're
I'm
looking
going to call
shady.
it, and they look shady, and then she start again. The theme of race is coming up because it's like, well, hang on, why aren't the police bloody here? You know, it's because this is just a dingy little deli, isn't it? You know, in the Bronx. So CJ decides, Sebastian doesn't want her to do it, but she decides to stop it. She's going to go in and actually stop it. And so she goes in, she warns the deli owner.
Yeah, writes on a bit of a little
Yeah,
note on
about
the
the
paper.
gun.
This is robbery.
Yeah. But because of that, it kind of escalates it because he pulls out his gun. And it's a good old, Western
But
again.
you see, I was thinking at the time going, well, wouldn't he just pick up the phone and quite loudly announce, "Hi, 911, I'd like to announce a robbery at my shop." And then they'd freak out and run. But then I thought, actually, maybe he's of this opinion that the cops won't turn
Cops
up.
won't come in time. I
And
might as well just shoot it.
These guys are likely to try and shoot me dead or something. So I've got a gun. I'll do it myself. I'll look after
it's
myself.
a good strategy or one, but at the same time, pick it up and say, like, they might just shoot you. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Yeah, this is the Bronx, man. You're in trouble. This ain't Mandra.
Yeah, I wouldn't have escalated it with a gun.
No. And I mean, I think it's that old thing, isn't it? Like one gun, my gun's bigger than your gun. I mean, if no one has the gun to begin with. But look, that's a whole other thing. Sorry.
Open
Don't
the cash
start
drawer.
talking about it.
Open the cash drawer.
Yeah,
Take the money
give them
out.
all the cash.
And well, I was going to say take the money and walk
Run.
it back.
Yeah, true.
Or just hand it to them and say, look, just go.
Just go because it's better than anyone dying. But anyway.
Let's face it, how much money is he going to have in that till?
And so when they come out, Sebastian has gotten.
Yeah, well, did you gloss over the fact that Sebastian from the past, not the
Oh, that's
time
right.
traveling
Sorry,
Sebastian. It was
no, I did gloss.
past Sebastian goes in
Past
and is
Sebastian.
confused to find CJ in there and sort of, we're meeting somewhere or other. Why are you here? Yeah, why are you here? But yeah, and so as a result, he gets shot, staggers out, drops down. Future time traveling Sebastian sort of looks on, and then he's not sure what's going on, and then he coughs up a bit of blood and grabs his stomach, and then flashes and disappears. Backpack drops to the ground, but not his clothes.
Yeah, and then she flashes back because her time is obviously back, and her brother is back.
Brother is back, but we've cut straight to the funeral of Sebastian.
Yeah.
Memorial of Sebastian. And so it's sort of like at this point, well, do I have to choose between Calvin or Sebastian?
Yeah.
And in fact, she later on is talking with Calvin about all this. And Calvin points out that he thinks he feels that it should have been him. Like Sebastian had so much going for him and had the future ahead of him and everything was cool. It shouldn't have been him. And at this point, CJ reveals to him. Oh no, because he found the memorial.
He did,
booklet
yeah.
And said, "And what the hell's going on here?"
Yeah.
And so she goes, "Well, we went back," and he says, "You're not going back," and then asks, "What's your actual plan going to be?" She doesn't know. And so he ends up helping her.
Yeah, he does.
Although it's a good point, because you've got all the time in the world, really. You've got plenty of time to make your plans. Why they didn't be a little bit more specific about their plans, a little bit more obvious. And this is one of those frustrating things with time travel movies in general, is that there's always better ways of doing things, and they never seem to do the better way.
No.
And I think it's a common problem-solving issue, isn't it? Is people who are very close to the problem can't understand the bigger. Because I was thinking, he gives her his dog tags, Dad's dog tags, and says, "Look, that plus the memorial, that's got to convince me, because there's no way I'd ever take these dog tags off and give them to you. So how would you end up with them?" And I know, and they go, and sure enough, they run down, and instead of going to the bodega, they run the other way, which confuses Sebastian because he's like, but, we're supposed to, that was our plan to go there.
Yeah.
But this is the other Sebastian who hadn't died yet, that she's gone and joined with, who went on that. Anyway, so they run off and they come across Calvin and his buddy. And they get into some ridiculous argument, because let's face it, someone runs up to you and says, I'm from the future.
Yeah.
Come with me if you want to live. And you're like, what? Particularly if it's your little sister. And you sort of go, I don't have a little sister, but it's my little brother. I'd be like, what nonsense is this? What trick are you trying to play here? What's the game? And this is ridiculous. And then she shows the dog tags. And he says, well, you got these knockoffs there. They must be bootleg. That's not real. And they have a bit of an argument there. And the whole time I'm thinking, yeah, this is just like that first scene. They have an argument. Right. And sure enough, the cops turn up. And there's a tense scene where Calvin doesn't back down initially. He's like, he's been all tough.
Yeah. Which
is exactly the wrong thing to do in this situation. And
Sebastian's arguing as well.
Yeah, Sebastian, I think. Well,
and
what happens with Sebastian?
On
throw him on the ground, and it's like he's all stiff and locked up. And
Well, I think they arrested. One of them's arresting him.
Well, they're trying to get the handcuffs, but he's not getting his arms behind his back. Yeah. And God knows why that is. I sort of got him. It looked
was the backpack, I think, wasn't it?
He was having a seizure or something.
I think he was stuck with his backpack. That was the idea.
Yeah, I know. He was struggling. He wasn't. I don't think he was by choice.
No.
Resisting. It wasn't by choice choosing to get shot. No. So, and this is where we get the photo scene where Calvin looks at the memorial and it changes to Sebastian.
Yeah.
And then it changes back to Calvin.
Yeah, because then he pulls.
And he stands up.
Deliberately pulls.
And he reaches into his pocket and pulls his phone out.
Yeah.
Which everyone knows phones look exactly like guns.
They do.
And he gets shot. Yes.
But then that's what you said before, like, you're like, how would you convince him? What about a video recording?
Well, I would suggest
before going, like, if I videotaped you saying, "Past Surrey, I'm your future self. If you don't do what Mark is telling you to do when he comes and sees you, you're going to die."
Well, see, on the other hand, though,
would you think that was like totally? But then you'd probably think it's fake, wouldn't you?
The goal of this was not to convince him of anything. The goal was to have him not get shot by the police.
Yeah.
So the easiest thing to do would be, if they immediately came up to them,
or knock him out,
grab their friend's phone,
and run,
call them both names, give them a bit of a shove, and then run.
Yeah,
they'd chase you. They'd go, "Oh, bloody CJ and Sebastian, what are you doing?" They'd chase after you. No longer on the street when the cops turn up.
Or what about like running up and saying, "Mum's in hospital. Yeah, gotta come right now."
Because like. And there's the thing: the goal is
Mum's
not
been hit
to
by a car.
convince them.
Like, you
get the same thing in horror movies where the person comes up and says, "There was this monster, a werewolf jumped at me." Yeah. "Oh, you've been drinking again."
Yeah.
And the person's like got blood on them and stuff. Like, you sort of say. So the point here is that the bigger picture really is that it's the werewolf thing is irrelevant.
Yeah.
What is relevant is we are in big danger.
Yeah.
This is not my blood. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Then people would go, "Oh yes, okay." They'll fill in whatever detail I want. Same thing.
Yeah, it is.
So it's frustrating, and you just want them to just
convince them.
Get moving. You don't even have to talk to him. You just give him a quick slap in the nuts and run.
That's right.
He'll chase you. Yeah, trust me.
Or even if like you tackled him to the ground, because then when the police came, if you're on the ground like rolling around, they're probably like, it's different, isn't it? The scenario is different now. You know, like anything could be different. Anything could be different. Just not standing there where you're going to go, who?
They know when the police turn up and they turn up in a car. What about a board with a bunch of broken nails in it?
Yeah.
With nails poking up at the right time, cars run over it, stops way up the street.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
And even if it stopped other cars, it would probably stop the police car.
Different scenario.
There we go. Thinking. So after this second time, Kelvin sort of sacrificed himself. Her brother disappears, doesn't he, as well?
Yeah, we get back to the current timeline.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and where we watch him see his sister disappear. And then he sort of turns away and walks and disappears.
Yeah, and so Sebastian has a whole, like, back with CJ questioning about going back again. She's saying we're going to go back again and save him.
And he's saying
and
that
then-
it's always turned out bad.
Yeah, and then he's sort of actually questioning her, like, how... so she reveals that he died previously, and the truth about that, and so him sort of realising that is very important. And so he doesn't want to travel back, and we basically come into the end here where then CJ travels back without him.
Yep.
Yep.
And starts running.
Then starts running, presumably to save her brother.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
Unless you desperately wanted to use the
But
toilet.
if she's... this is going to take me back to what we were arguing about earlier. But then if she's going back again, is she going to see herself...
No, because she's got the super quantum mega magic.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So it splices timelines and resets them, essentially, whatever that means.
It's like a video editing.
It means she gets a go again.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I know, and that's one of these frustrating things where you sit there going, okay, if you sat down and took a moment, because you've got a time machine, you don't have to go in this 5-minute period.
No.
You could spend an hour, cool yourself down, and just go, what is... Because Sebastian's biggest complaint was it's freaking dangerous. Like, he nearly got killed that time, and he did get killed the other time.
Yeah.
And then you've got to just sort of say, well, okay, so let's come up with, calling the police to stop the crime. That was a good plan because it kept you out of the way. But then for some reason you went into where the crime was going to occur. So you could sit down and come up with, okay, here's 10 ways that we can try that don't involve, getting in harm's way.
Yeah. And even us being involved in it, so that we cause a ripple from that,
So let's just try each of these 10 ways, which are really like safe and secure. Like I said, you could do ones where, okay, you turn up. The difficulty is they've only got about 10 minutes in the past. But if you turned up and set fire to a bunch of cars on that street,
Yeah. And I mean, they bring stuff, like they bring their phones and that. So that, like, even I was just thinking that you said before the nails, they could actually do that in the present and then take it back with them, couldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, surely.
Take those back.
Set fire to the cars. I mean, they could bring petrol and just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chuck it in there because
Fire up the whole street.
that will get everyone out of the buildings, and there'll be...
It would just be a different reaction.
It'll be
have
chaos.
To be. Yeah.
There'd be no way that the cops would turn up there and pull their guns and start shooting if there's that much chaos going around. They'd be just like, what the hell has happened here?
And also, surely the brother would go, what the hell are you doing lighting up cars? Like,
he would probably run. Surely he'd go, I'm not hanging around for this. This is crazy. So you could easily come up with 10 different ways which would be quite safe to do, relatively easy, and only after you've exhausted all of your really obvious options then you start doing the more obscure and weird options. Not to mention the fact, 10 minutes, go back to 10 minutes like early in the day to the police station where those 2 police officers are and distract them while they're getting the call. Ask directions. Buy them donuts. Sorry for any police listeners, but I'm sure you like donuts as much as I do.
Yeah.
I'd be distracted.
I would.
I'm not policist.
So what was your viewing experience like of this?
I watched this in 3 parts.
Right.
So the first part was given the brief description on Netflix, it says a couple of teenage friends develop a time machine and that's about it. I sort of went, oh, this is like a kid's movie. Started watching it with my kids. About 7 minutes in or so, there's sort of a fair bit more sort of swearing, and the theme is looking a little bit grim, and the kids are like looking at me going, Dad, why are we watching this movie? And I'm like, well, I don't know. This is a bit of a strange movie for us to watch. So we watched something else. And then I watched some on the train. And then I watched on the train up to just before they went back for the first time. So that's the halfway mark, right? The midpoint, where they get it all working. Then watched the last part with my wife, where I was able to quickly fill her in saying, because she saw the first 7 minutes, knowing that there's 2 kids with time machines, says, they're going to go back save brother. So if I was a little bit vague on that first sort of 10-minute scene with Michael J. Fox, I'm like, that was a few months ago that I actually watched that. But so it was But being that it's a time travel movie was a bit chopped up, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was fine. I think I got all of the parts in together. It was a bit strange. And how did it make me feel? That's a question. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Oh dear. I amuse myself endlessly.
You do. And I'm glad, because I can't be bothered.
Yeah, don't bother trying to amuse me. It doesn't work. So I think I really liked the setting that it was in. I feel as if this movie needed more time because...
Irony.
I think there was, irony there. Because I think Spike Lee's influence there on the racial elements, I think, that tension there was really in there. The topical with the Black Lives Matters protests and police shootings of kids, not of each other, I assume. That it felt as if there could have been a whole lot more, a lot more drama and tension wanted to be introduced in here. And they only got 3 times back. I feel it could have been a bit more Groundhog Day-ish in that they could have quickly shown exhausting a number of straightforward plans. And thus having to take more direct, slightly riskier action. Yeah,
the film didn't do you mentioned that About Time, isn't it? Or About Time. It's in that because there's that joke he can go, so it's 1, 2, 3. He does it 3 times in a row, doesn't he? The same thing. So they could have even done that with this film, couldn't they? They could have done a montage of them trying to fix it. And because then that would, everything we said before about, logically thinking out the solution. If they'd sort of done that and shown that, oh no, every single solution doesn't work out.
Yeah, the 3 that we sort of spend time on
are the best options.
One is sort of the worst, where Sebastian dies, and the other 2 are sort of the better outcomes.
Yeah, the better outcomes.
And that's sort of like it. But it had, I think it had some great, build up there where we first have Calvin's death and the news reports and these families in their little living rooms.
Yeah.
And even after Sebastian's death, where the grandfather is wailing, and his wife has been admitted to the hospital because she's just had a mental breakdown of some sort, she's totally messed up. And you really get this strong feeling of consequence there, and on a personal level where it's, who cares about these larger pictures? There are these larger pictures going on in the background.
Yeah.
But then it brings it right home going, but even still, what really matters is the fact that these people here are just, they're victims of this situation and they're suffering.
Yes.
It's, you can have whatever protest you like, you can have whatever political movement you like and so forth. At the end of the day, it's about people and families, struggling and suffering because of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's quite good. I thought there's some great intense bits there, which would have been awesome to expand on. But then there's also this time travel part, the science fiction part, which could have expanded on.
Yeah.
And I think the 2 would have worked really well in, I don't know how you get a longer format. It was actually a relatively short film, an hour 20.
Yeah.
Or an hour 27, but then there's always about 7 minutes of credits and things. So about an hour 20-ish.
For me, I enjoyed watching this because I kind of was I like time travel. So as soon as I start watching something like that, I thought, as I said at the start of our podcast here, that, it was good that we started straight away. They were trying to do it. There wasn't any long waffle to that. I got excited by Michael J. Fox. There was homage going on there. They got into it pretty quickly. I liked the idea of it being 2 friends, not it didn't seem like they were boyfriend and girlfriend.
There was no romance.
It wasn't really romance.
They were the family they chose.
That's right.
I think that's mentioned a couple of times.
Yeah.
Which I agree. It was so good. There was no sexual tension at all between these two.
And that's good because a boy and a girl can be friends.
They even made a few remarks where something or other black man, something or other black woman. They said there's that sort of ritual exchange, and at the very end when she says, I love you, Sebastian, but then she runs off. Yeah. It was delivered in the same way that you'd say it to a good friend or a family member or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really did appreciate that wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Because it would have been so easy for to have a little bits of,
Oh, yeah.
Sebastian's particularly annoyed at her ex-boyfriend.
Because
and then
he
kind
loves
of
her.
jealous about the computer tech whiz
Yeah.
they go to. But none of that counts. So that was very cool, actually.
I know I liked the setting. Now, look, I haven't gone to Brooklyn myself, but from all the other movies of Brooklyn, growing up in the 80s, looking back in the 70s and the 60 films and the way New York, Brooklyn can be shown, where it's like, on every street corner there's drug deals and things like that. Like, I felt that this was much more of a real version of Brooklyn. Yeah. And I think when you coupled that with that tone that they were trying to create of police randomly talking to them quite antagonistically or accelerating in the violence, like, I really liked that. And a perfect scene of that, in fact, was, when they first travelled and they, like, ran up to people and they, like, what's the date? And, like, one lady's like, it's this date, you guys are weird. And then the next person, like, they grab the next person, like, what's the date? And they're saying that the date, and they're like, well, are you guys on crack? Like, are you guys on drugs? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, it's the date, And then the third guy's like, fuck off.
Yeah,
fuck
out of my face.
Like, get the fuck out of my face. It's like this isn't a nice world, but it seemed like it wasn't the unrealistic Hollywood version of that sort of black ghetto. Like, it's like, no, this is a real world, Like, they're on the train, they catch the train. Like, they talk to each other, and some people are nice to them, some people are rude to them, Like, it seemed so much more legit, And again, it might go back to good old Spike Lee being involved or not, I'm not sure. But I liked that. I liked that real world environment. So therefore, bringing in this antagonistic police force and violent, culture, it made it more dangerous to me, because it's like, oh, okay, this world's a little bit unhinged. It's not the crazy Hollywood version, but then when you can couple it with a police force that's more violent, it made a lot more sense. So I liked that. That was a really cool viewing experience for me. What about where do you put this on your ladder?
Climbing the rungs of my ladder.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the ladder.
The ladder's getting big
as
now.
An actual ladder.
Yeah.
As in, if you were going to watch these movies, what order would I suggest you watch them in? Then start at the bottom of this ladder and climb your way to the top.
Fair enough.
They're all worth watching.
Yeah, well and truly.
And you can pull something out of each one of them, whether it be story or scene or setting or acting or cinematography.
And that is our whole intention here at Space Brains, is to look for the positives.
So I'm going to put this one. Above Shanghai Fortress. So I reckon you should watch The Space Between Us.
Yes.
You should watch Shanghai Fortress.
Yeah.
And then you should watch See You Yesterday before Equals, The Wandering Earth, Darkest Dawn, and so forth.
Yeah, right.
That's the way I reckon you should go.
Yeah. Mine's, for this one...
Culminating to... Oh,
sorry.
It's Oblivion at the top at the moment. Oblivion and Pitch Black. I am...
Yeah, you and your Pitch Black.
Me and my Pitch Black. I know. I've been poisoned by it. It struck me at a time, but See You Yesterday.
Hey, on a little side note, Kristen Stewart, who was in Equals.
Yes.
There's a brand new movie called Underwater that's just coming out. And it reminds me, I watched the trailer. A few critics are against it. A few fan people are really into it. It's 7 miles deep in the ocean. They have to walk a little bit along the ocean to get to the rescue bit, and there's monsters, right? So I was like, watching the trailer, it looks a lot like Pitch Black because it's pitch black down there.
Monsters.
There's some sort of monster thing.
They're trying to eat them?
Yeah, they're going to eat them.
Oh, yeah. You know, if there's monsters trying to eat people, I'm in it always.
It kind of looks like there's bits of Alien, but if you should watch the trailer because it looks like Pitch Black.
Well, that sounds
a
fantastic.
version of Pitch Black.
So long as they have the characterization.
But that's the thing; they might not have Riddick.
Yeah,
that made that for me. That's Riddick, what made the film.
That triumvirate there of Riddick, the pilot, and the bounty hunter. With a bit of spice thrown in with the religious guy and his students.
Yeah,
but
Riddick's the way that they revealed Riddick was really what made that film worth it.
But where are you putting this one on yours ladder?
Mine's a bit higher actually. Yeah, I'm sort of thinking it's on about my fourth rung of the ladder from the top. Yeah, I think it deserves a bit of credit. So yeah, I'm putting it up there.
Good work.
So wherever you think about your ladder and how you're looking at all the films we've reviewed and where you might fill it in on there, let us know. Hit us up. As I say, every episode we've got to make this into a graphic.
Yeah,
socials.
infographic. I'm gonna get myself onto Fiverr and find someone who makes infographics, little explainers or something.
Yes,
and then get it on there.
Sounds good. Okay, we have talked quite a bit about plot and some of the scenes. Did you have a favourite?
I love that grandfather.
Yeah,
the grandpa. I loved his Jamaican accent, which I will not try again. At all.
No, do not, John.
I almost tried it there. I won't try that again.
No, I'm not going to do
it. No. So, yeah, just that scene in the garage where there's two kids enthusiastic about their project. They've got a week to go before it's revealed to the world.
Yeah.
Grandfather comes in, wants them to do the yard work. And the reason I like the scene is because it broke my expectation. Yeah. I was expecting... You've got to do your yard work. Science, yeah, that's really interesting. But you know what still needs to be done? Honest, hard work in the yard with a rake, and then, okay. And then they've got to go out and something happens.
Yes.
Totally opposite. As soon as they say that what they're doing, the grandfather's like, hey, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So when you've done this in a week's time, however... I want to see you get out and do some, basically get a summer job, but, he's expressing that they should experience other things as well, because they've clearly been doing a lot of science. For the past year, they've been locked away.
I think it also puts it's a bit of characterization for Sebastian as well, but isn't it? It's like he's not going to be on the street doing drugs or gangs or anything. He's going to be one of the guys working, it puts the character and the family dynamics a bit into context that they're good people, in this society. They're just trying to do their thing. Like they're just trying to be as good as they can.
And I think the other scene was when they did first go back and they're running around asking, they're so excited, what's the date?
Yeah, I loved that. I reckon that was great.
It gave you that feeling that I'm sure we've all had when your little project or your little effort has worked.
Yeah.
And so on the Friday, I went to the Cronulla skate park.
Yeah.
And we're there. We took a friend's kid along with us who otherwise doesn't get out skating often. And she was doing this cool slide where you come around slowly and then you just slide the tail of the skateboard side on and come to a stop. Just got that to work. Felt so good. I wanted to run around and say, what's the date? No one was watching me.
No.
Damn it.
Yeah, I love that scene, and that's what I was just talking about as well. I love the Michael J. Fox scene. Like, that just got me super pumped. And I think I loved the idea of the photo, like the photo on the memorial piece of paper. Like, when I saw that, I thought, is it going to shapeshift? Like there was the excitement in that factor. I really, really enjoyed that. But I suppose like just even the scene where they do actually time travel the first time. So, we mentioned at the start they fail, but we've got that dirty, dingy alleyway, and then it's like sparks fly, the bike shakes, the Coke can moves, and then they like warp into a bit of a, Space Odyssey tunnel, don't they?
I got the real feeling of that.
And it was, it was all like flashing and the colours, and they were also like, when they landed as well, they were really sort of a bit out of body. Like they were kind of like had to get back into their bodies. Like it was almost like their spirit or their brain was elsewhere, and they sort of had to come back in. I thought that was quite well acted, and I felt it, in a good way. It was a different time travel, like in Back to the Future, the time travel just happens pretty much in time. It just happens, and so it's kind of cool to sort of actually have a bit of that. Like, I like a wormhole. Like, who doesn't like a wormhole? Like it's kind of like they can really exaggerate a wormhole. I think it was done right to the sort of the right length of time for a wormhole, and just have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah, it's,
you know, like,
it's just, again, it's Star Trek style
Yeah,
science, where
it
it's
is.
just kind of drop a few words that are real words,
Yep.
but
and this is sort of what it would look like.
don't go into any explanation. Like
No.
the Beyond
Yeah.
actually cut to a physicist explaining
Yeah.
things, which
it's
was
like
very cool.
everything. Yeah, it was.
But this is not that story.
No,
This
this
story
is
is
novel.
like is like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's science. Yeah, that's the science.
Yeah.
Wormhole, positron, antimatter, neutron leak. Bang. Okay, now what we're doing actually is just time travel.
Yeah.
So it's really very good.
Yeah, so I liked that. I think that was a scene that I thought was really cool. Like, I liked, that was probably one that stood out to me, definitely. Any things you think they could tweak, make better next time?
Like I said, a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And a little bit more. A little bit more impact of the time travel to the life and the existence that they have.
Yeah.
Either positive or negative, either a touch of hope or a touch of, doom.
Yeah.
Either one, the ending, and having looked up some interview there where I was talking to Stefon Bristol, he's saying that he wanted that feeling of just continuousness.
Yeah.
There was, and I can understand that, but I really, to feel properly satisfied, wanted a little bit more either dipping down or dipping up, some sort of indication so that you can argue about. But otherwise, it's a beautiful world they presented.
Yeah.
And the characters were quite nice. I loved all those Jamaican accents. Is that common in Brooklyn? I don't know.
Again, I think it adds depth that it's not just, a stereotype of an American black, Afro-American kind of thing. It's the African-American, sorry, not Afro. African-American.
You're allowed to reference Afro Circus, Afro Circus.
Yeah. So,
but only in reference to Madagascar.
Whereas this is kind of like, hey, not all black people are the same. There's different cultures, Yeah, and Jamaica, came in, and probably some other South American countries are in there as in there as well. Like, there's influences that aren't just African American, and they get blanketed a bit the same, I think. So I think that's definitely a good thing for it to be there. I agree. Like, I think it could have been a bit longer. I also, probably what we mentioned earlier, there could have been more of a montage of time travel, like options, giving us some, whether they could have been fun or more serious.
Well, they would have had to have a couple funny ones, because we've got that little bit where she throws the slushies.
Yeah.
And it has a serious side of it, but maybe a couple others where they just go back and play with puppies. No,
I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking more like they're trying to save the day, but things just go wrong. Like a montage of that would be, because I think that could have then that option of like going to Kelvin or not going. It would have like ramped that tension up a bit more. And then I also do think that probably at the end, like, I get the idea of continuous, but I think at the end it could have been that she doesn't save him, and so she's going to like do something totally different, like go to a different time frame, or you know what I mean, like, and then that could be the continuous.
Really, mess stuff up.
Really go, well, I'm going to go off and just alter the whole freaking problem of our society. Go back when Thomas Jefferson was here or something, when the American Constitution was drawn up, and I'm going to change it there or something.
Remove that right to bear arms.
Yeah, that's right. Like, get rid of that so that therefore no one had guns, Who knows? But overall, I think it was a really great, there's a lot of really good stuff in this film. I love the attitude of the film. It's very, like you said before, you started playing it with your little kids and then they started swearing. And that's again, what I liked about this, that it felt very realistic for the age group as well. Like, it didn't beat around the bush. Like, they could be friends. They nerded out on the science stuff. They didn't have to be boyfriend, girlfriend. She had another boyfriend. He's a jerk. Like this other guy in the classroom who ends up the super quantum mechanics thing. Yeah. Like, he's the one that's got the crush on her. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not Sebastian. So I liked that, like the dynamics and the world. Like, I liked that. I liked the Brooklyn world they created.
That was very nice, and it'd be nice to see more. You could almost sort of see a TV show spin off on this.
You could, quite easily.
Quantum Leap 2.
Yeah.
This time it's Brooklyn.
Yes. That'll be a good one. So what about the science, Surrey?
I'm glad you are.
I always ask about the science.
Yeah, the interesting thing is we can time travel.
What?
Forwards through time.
Ah.
And, well, the interesting thing here, they talk about wormholes. I've mentioned
Well,
this, but
that's
time traveling with wormholes. And the exciting thing you've got to think about with time travel of this nature is that they're traveling to a place. It's not just a time. We've got this concept of time space. It's
Time, space, place.
It's combined. Like you can't have time without space and vice versa. So the whole idea of the wormhole, and I spoke about this on the Beyond episode. If you want more about wormholes, go see that. Is that it's linking two different time spaces in a continuous path, so that you could walk from one time space into another time space.
Right.
And because it is time space and not just space, that physical location could apparently be very close to or the same as your current location. The difficulty being here, of course, is always that the Earth is traveling constantly around the sun, and the whole solar system is traveling through the galaxy, and the galaxy is moving in the universe. So if you go back one day, then the Earth is one day earlier in its orbit and one day closer to the center of the galaxy, and all the rest of it. But you don't worry about that, because wormholes join space-time.
Yes.
So if you were to, presumably these machines they've got with their quantum doodads and what knows, are able to make the calculations such that the ends of the wormhole open relative to Earth. I mean, you could do those calculations and figure out for any given time gap where Earth will be in relation to where you are now, and so on. So let's assume that calculation gets done.
Yes.
So the idea of wormholes for time travel is that you create a wormhole in one spot, so you've got the two halves of it, openings, and then you drag one of them out and away at accelerating up to close to the speed of light, fly around, and then decelerate back down and brought it back down. And now you've got a wormhole that's in the future, but it's at, because of time dilation, because you've gone and traveled so fast, it's traveled further into the future than you would have expected. So you can now walk backwards through the wormhole to the past, depending on how fast you accelerate and how long you do that for, as to how big a time dilation you're going to have between the two.
Yes.
But it means that you'd never be able to travel back earlier than the time you created the wormhole. And there's actually there are a couple time travel movies that use that notion. I can't remember the name of it. There's one of them, though, where they invent this wormhole time travel device.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, they can travel back to that time when they first turn it on, but they can't travel earlier because obviously that's when the wormhole opens. Now, these guys are obviously able to make wormholes spontaneously. And if wormholes could be created, then there's no particular reason why you couldn't. As I said, it's space-time as a dual thing. You could combine the two. Interesting.
Yeah.
But our forward traveling.
Yeah, that's immediately what I think is like, well, can you travel forwards?
Yeah, and we're talking about time dilation here. And so this is a real thing that happens to astronauts on the space station. And in fact, if you live on the top of a mountain compared to someone living down on the beach. And I was reading, and so this is because when you are at a lower point of gravitational potential, so you're closer to a high gravity mass, you experience time slower than when you're further away from a gravity mass. So if you are inside of a black hole's event horizon, you will be experiencing time very slowly compared to someone on the far out. The reality is you would feel like time is exactly the same, and you'd be seeing other people moving, and it's a hard thing. You wouldn't see them moving faster, but they would be.
Right.
Really weird stuff. So, and that's because the speed of light is constant. So if you think of the good old analogy of
Bake 'em a noodle
a sheet of rubber with a heavy weight on it being the mass, and the curvature of the sheet of rubber being the gravity well going in. If you drew a grid lines on this sheet, and each grid was 1 unit that took 1 unit of time for light to travel across, if you go then and push down a 1, you can see that the grid lines would get squished close together.
Yeah.
So the light would travel from one side to the other, seemingly very slowly from anyone outside. So someone looking in there would see like a really tiny little gap, and it seems to take forever for light to travel from one side to the other. Whereas if you were right down in there, all of these grid lines would be stretched way apart, and it would seem like this light
flashing
is shooting past. Of course, it would still only be traveling at the speed of light.
Yes.
It's just that light and time and space have to be constant.
I'm understanding this because I'm remembering The Simpsons.
Yeah.
When Homer goes into the space-time continuum.
Yeah, and it's a grid.
It's a 3D world of himself.
Yeah, so it's a very, very peculiar notion. But then, of course, when you travel closer to the speed of light, everything else that you observe around you appears to move slowly. So clocks, and this is the old experiment, you put a clock on your spaceship, you send it away from the Earth, and when it comes back after accelerating, and it's important you have to accelerate here because if you are traveling at a constant speed apart, then time moves constantly. It looks slower, but when you reconnect the clocks, they're not actually changed. But if you're accelerating, then you get like a Doppler effect with this, and this is the time dilation. And then this clock shoots off, comes back, and it will have clicked fewer ticks of the clock.
Yes.
Which less time has passed.
Yeah, effectively less time has passed.
And so, these Russian astronauts who've done like a year or whatever, and for 18 months, or however long it was, the longest one, he's got about 20 milliseconds of his life back, thanks to his rushing around. So the closer you get to the speed of light, the greater this effect is. Yeah. So in fact, if you accelerated from Earth at 1g continuous, and you could somehow do this, you could actually cross the galaxy in like a human lifespan. It takes orders of magnitude more energy every increment of speed you want to increase.
Yeah.
So you end up having to be entirely massless. You need to be a photon, travel the speed of light. But the interesting side effect of that is for photons, there is no passage of time, which I try not to think too hard about, because as soon as you think, so there's no passage of time, there is no speed, which means how many photons are actually present? Because if they travel at speed, the only time they experience time is when they hit something else and are absorbed and re-emitted later. But so the sun emits a photon. From the photon's point of view, it's already at Earth. Like there is no time difference. There's no space. Don't go too far into this.
Yeah, because...
But that's how it could travel into the future. So that photon, for us, it takes 8 minutes for the photon to reach us on Earth. If you were somehow able to be a passenger on the photon or on a ship traveling close to its speed...
But how can they not experience time in that context? Because it does take 8 minutes.
It takes, from our point of view, it takes 8 minutes.
Yeah.
From their point of view, there is no distance.
But is that just because they don't have any clocks?
Yeah, well, I don't know. They're notoriously bad timekeepers, those photons. But so if you were flying along behind it at a close to the speed of light, then you would experience almost no time passage.
No.
It would seem like a very short distance.
Well, yeah, 8 minutes is nothing.
Well, it'd be, but for your experience, it'd be even less. It'd be a blink of an eye, and you'd be at Earth.
Oh.
Yeah. It's all a bit hypothetical because you would also have to be just pure energy at that point. So you wouldn't actually have a consciousness. But we shan't worry about that. No. That moves into cosmological concepts of what is consciousness and is everything actually conscious to some degree.
Well, so does that just mean if we could do it in a spaceship or some sort of like actual ship, so we are still humans, but we've managed to do travel at the speed of light.
Yeah, so we get
the warm wormhole thing.
So we get to 80% of the speed of light. Or
Yeah.
something.
But even in that context, so the speed of light would mean like the universe sort of almost like warps.
Yeah, you would stretch out.
That's what you're saying there, that it would seem like almost like it might be 8 minutes, but it's actually in that context, it's just like a wall of light. And then we're like, oh, we're here.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, you'd end up with some very peculiar perception distortions.
Yeah, so it's a distortion of time, not necessarily a actual blink of time.
That's right. It's a
bit like the 2001.
It gets very difficult to conceive of because it's an inhuman concept.
Right. Yeah,
it's like asking what's on the outside of the universe. What are we expanding into?
Well, who knows? It's also like saying to us what happens after our physical body dies, isn't it? It's like we can think of, religions come up with reasons, science comes up with reasons. We can think of things, but you actually don't know until you die.
Yes.
You just actually don't know. There's no proof really of anything until you die. Like, yes, our body will decay and all that. Like that's a given, but we don't.
And that's that cosmological question of what is consciousness.
Yeah, like conscious. Does our conscious actually go? Does our conscious just keep living?
Yeah. Does it slowly dissipate? Does it dissipate slower than the surrounding material holding, or does it go faster than the material?
Is it like you just said? Is it just like a proton? Like it doesn't understand time anymore, so therefore our physical body dies, but our consciousness.
Well, see, I wondered if you get a bit of time dilation going on there, because as you're dying, in fact. Is this a whole seeing your life flash before you?
Yeah, that people
are
talk
you
about.
Actually, in that split second before death, you're experiencing an exaggerated
death.
Anyway, that's sort of moving into some pretty hefty philosophical grounds there. But as soon as you start talking time travel, you've got to start moving beyond the realms of detected and empirical knowledge. It's just the requirement. But it is very interesting, I think, in general, this concept of the speed of light and that time, because time and height and width and length, these dimensions, are bounded. Speed of light is kind of the constant amount they all have to sum to. Any action that occurs within space-time has to sum to the speed of light. And so matter, for example, is equal to the energy in, say, photons times the square of the speed of light. So there's kind of this constant amount. And in this movie, she was talking about changing the spin on electrons, which would turn them into positrons, which are antimatter.
Yeah.
And then you feed them in, and when a positron and electron bump into one another, they mutually annihilate, releasing 500,000 electron volts, whatever that is. But that's the mass of an electron converted to photons.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain consistency there. So if you squish physical dimensions, then you get a time dilation.
Yeah.
And have you heard of the Alcubierre? I think that's how you pronounce it. Warp drive, and that's this concept that with enough energy and the right sort of material, you can actually squeeze or bunch space-time in front of your spaceship and stretch it out behind. So the leading edge is a scrunched up wall of space-time, and the trailing edge is a stretched out. And then when you turn it off, the bunched up bit flops out behind, and you're now ahead of where you would be were you traveling at the speed of light.
There's a movie or TV show that.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm sure. I think that's what I've heard about it.
And the only thing stopping us from doing this, of course, is this material that we have yet to figure out how to make, which has to have a certain quality to it. But
it's interesting. Do you think that time travel will be invented?
I don't think traveling to the past is possible because it's not a place anymore. Because in order for you to be able to travel to the past, it must be physically connected to the present. And that, as wormholes indicate, is hypothetically possible because you could, under a set of equations show a coincidence of two space-times which are remote.
Yeah.
But of greater interest, or more reality, is that the time distribution through space, or space-time through our universe, is not necessarily consistent. So there are pockets that are denser and pockets that are stretched out, which means that there are places in the universe that are essentially aging. I shouldn't say there are places. Under certain theories, there are places in this universe which are experiencing time relative to us at a slower or a faster rate.
Yeah, yeah.
And by traveling in and out of these places, you can essentially time travel.
Yeah.
So you could go into a place and come out an hour later and return back to Earth, and then 100 years will have gone past.
Yes.
So it's like the H.G. Wells time machine, where he goes forward through time.
Yeah.
I think I guess in the original H.G. Wells, he goes forward through time and then returns back to when he left. But I don't think he can go backwards. So that sort of thing, or as accelerating up close to the speed of light and coming back allows you to pass time. And there's a book series or a book called Old Man's War, which sort of explores this concept of these soldiers chucked on these spaceships and sent off to fight in alien species, and they do it at relativistic speeds. So they're shooting off, and they spend 5 years traveling to their destination. 20, 30 years has passed for Earth. So much so that by the time this guy goes on his bit of his mission and goes around, enough time has occurred that Earth and the alien species have established communications and made peace. So he comes back from his tour of duty, and 150 years or something crazy has gone past, and they're no longer at war. And but he got split up from his girlfriend, who has gone off to the retirement planet. And he's going, well, she would have experienced about 55 or 70 years or something, while I was out experiencing 6 months. And it's okay, because he turns up to the retirement planet going, okay, well, what am I going to do with myself? I've got this, I'm an old man, and I don't have a girlfriend. Turns out, though, his girlfriend, a bunch of the other soldiers, pooled their money, because they were getting paid on Earth in the Earth Bank with compounding interest. So this is one of the benefits they told the soldiers: look, it's dangerous and you're probably going to die, but if you get back, you're going to be filthy rich. And sure, if he's got like 150 years worth of compounding salary, which he's not spent because he's been on duty, with danger pay, fabulously wealthy. And so were all the other soldiers, and they were on this retirement planet. So they actually bought a spaceship and basically went out at close to the speed of light and were doing a circuit around the sun. Every trip was felt like a month or something to them, but it was 5 years. And so every 5 years, basically, they'd return, having only aged a month or so. And all the people they would check to see if any of their friends from other tours had returned back yet. And so they get reunited.
Right.
So there is a way of traveling through time.
Sounds really interesting, that story.
So she basically was able to travel forwards through time to meet up with her boyfriend. Yeah. The interesting part, of course, is that these soldiers are genetically modified super soldiers that were like Avatar, where consciousness transferred into them from old people. So when you reach retirement age on Earth, 65, you are allowed to enlist in the army.
Right.
Because there's a one-way process. You came out of your body into the super soldier body. So they basically sort of said, we've got an aging population, and plenty of people hit 65, they've got no other retirement options. Why not? And so, they're getting a lot of, and this guy, he did it. He went, well, my wife died. My sons, my kids have all moved off and done whatever, and I could sort of potter around for the next 10, 20 years, whatever, and do nothing, or I could do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's forward traveling through time through relativistic speed.
Well,
backwards traveling, you'd have to have an established connection already to where you want to go. You couldn't just pick a day, because places don't arbitrarily exist continuously, unless, as you say, it's a multi-dimensional thing where you're actually traveling to another set of dimensions where everything looks remarkably similar, but it's ever so different, as in it's a different time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a funny one because when you even just said that before, it's like, well, yeah, everything that's happened. I mean, it's a question again, isn't it? It's like, does everything that's happened, we've moved on from it? You know, like our cells, you know, die away. We move on. Our body changes as we get older. You can't go back to an earlier version of yourself.
No, you can't.
Like, and so how would you? And so that on the bigger scale to that's like, how do you go back? How does the Earth get younger? How do you go back?
Yeah,
really,
there's sort of not a place.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Yesterday isn't a place.
No.
Tomorrow's not a place. You know, it's a process that will occur.
Yeah.
Unless you have a wormhole, which would be equivalent to a bridge. Literally, you'd be able to walk
between the two
from this set of time space to another time and space, which was earlier to the other one. But there's a lot of things to say that's just would not work. But but not absolutely not work.
No.
There's always a little bit of wiggle room there somewhere.
Yeah.
And you've just reminded me one thing that I was expecting when they were saying, we've done the spin, we've got the antimatter, we've done all this, we need the quantum thingamybobs. And they say, we need energy. We need something to be able to handle a lot of energy, or how much energy you're talking about. I was wanting someone to say 1.21 gigawatts. I was kind of going, will they do that? Because even with just a bit of a smile on their faces as if they know the story, but they didn't, so that was a shame.
No, they didn't.
But yeah, so that was that. So yourself, what did you think of the cinematography, technicality, storytelling?
Well, the cinematography was really cool. They did it very modern style. There was lots of depth of focus, shallow, deep focus points. Lots of pretty cool, macro portrait shots. It was as though, in my brain, this was shot on like a DSLR. And so you're getting that depth going on all the time. But it was really like modern day filmmaking in that way, which was cool. There's a very awesome effect. You probably saw this one stand out where the camera tilted to the left and it kept tilting, and it kind of almost did like a 180 into the next scene.
What got me about that was when she picked up the pack and she returned to the alleyway and she sort of, I think she vomited or something, but she bent over. She's obviously deeply affected.
Yeah.
In my head, I immediately thought to myself, oh, well, that went a bit sideways.
Yeah, yeah.
But then the camera was tilting, and I went, oh, did I think that because the camera started tilting, or was it coincidental that I thought it and then the camera tilted? But you're right. I forgot about that, and it tilts.
It went all the way upside down.
I love that. That was a really good. That was a good metaphor. Because
the world was turned upside down.
Yeah,
right?
it was just wonderful.
Yeah, so that was a really cool effect of. I remember they do it. I think in Spider-Man 2 they do a similar thing, but it was more powerful in this to me because of the fact that it was going to the funeral. So it was kind of like
it felt really natural. It didn't feel contrived or gimmicky. It really struck very well. And if I ever make a film, I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah, well, it was a really cool effect in the film. I've talked about the backpacks. They're really cute. They rule. They're real homage to the Ghostbusters, as was said. The time traveling through the wormhole. I think 2001's in there, but it was a really sort of spacey sort of situation. Also, there's a Matrix a reference as well, where someone's reacting to the travel. It was very much like them being in the Matrix, the learning program, and so they're on the street and, it's like, it was almost like, what do you mean kind of thing, that scene again. So I thought that was really cool. I think probably, and we've spoken a bit about it, but this idea of, okay, it's a science fiction film, but then the social commentary of the Black Lives Matter movement. I know in Australia it's very different. We've got a different sort of situation that's happened here with our Indigenous people. Obviously, in America, it is a lot to do with, the American black population there. And I think this film, like you've kept saying Jamaicans, like it's pushed it beyond just this one type, But we've had a lot of the stuff like online with Facebook and Instagram and other Twitter and etc., where it's like, on one side, those social media are very good at pushing and promoting, changes like this, but then they also push and promote the negatives just as much. Like those people get together just the same way.
I think also one of the things that this movie pointed out to me, as you're saying, is you get this whole push of the issue, the movement, because they showed several times the Black Lives Matters rallies.
Yeah, the protesting.
And the people sort of chanting and they're really upset. This big social movement, but that was being shown on a little crappy TV in the living room, and on a lounge, Mum is resting her head on her daughter's lap. She's clearly can't even handle it at the moment, and for me, it was really sort of saying, there's this big movement, Black Lives Matter or anything, but this is what it means.
Yeah, someone's dead.
This is what it means. It's like this family now doesn't have a dad, doesn't have the brother, and what are they supposed to do? Why is this keep getting so crap for them?
Yeah,
they've not done anything wrong, and you get that real micro view. Okay, you got this great. You've got a movement there. People are protesting, but at the same time, it's because there are people who are hurting.
And I mean, I think, so this film came out 2019, probably written and pre-production 2 or 3 years ago is when it started.
5 years to make.
5 years. So that even gives me better context for this social commentary, because you got to remember, even when Barack Obama was president, there was 2 or 3, Black Americans that were gunned down by the police. I know, I can't think of the town now off the top of my head. I feel like it's Getty somewhere. But there was, the one where there was like a teenager boy was shot by, I think, 2 white police officers, and he was just kind of coming home from his job or something, and they mistakenly identified him. And that was while Barack Obama was president, and you kind of think, wow, like even in that context, you can't, of a black president, there's still problems like this on the street level, and of course we had like, the Black Lives is going, that huge controversy with Pepsi that put out that terrible ad that was with Kyle Jenner, I think, and
poor Kylie Jenner
involved
in that.
It was a terrible ad where she walked up and it's like, well, the police officer's okay if I give him a Pepsi. Instead of like beating them over the head.
So, it's so minimized and commercialized what is a really important social movement, and it's I feel sorry for everyone involved in that.
And I mean, maybe if we step back as well from the film, you go, because it was answered very early in this film that time travel doesn't fix anything. And they kind of basically repeated that. Like, it never fixed anything.
This is the same thing as, magic doesn't fix anything.
Yeah. So then if you take something like this, and you're right, it's an undercurrent. It's not the main sort of theme of the film. The main theme is time travel. But you take this undercurrent of, the Black Lives Matters and these, her brother dying or her friend dying, one of them's going to die by the hands of the police. You can't change it. You can't change it. You can't change a society like that. Time travel doesn't fix this society. It's a long slog.
I think that's why I wanted some sort of stronger direction when she's running, whether it be a positive, like she's going to Parliament, affect change.
She's going to go to government.
Well, as I said, her brother had his phone out. That's why he got shot. Perhaps he filmed something that
the film
gets out and makes a difference.
Yeah.
Or maybe a downside to it, like a negative slant to it.
Yeah.
But some sort of direction of how this other commentary is going with this.
Yeah, and that's totally fair enough.
But then again, now I'm just realizing perhaps one of the ways you could look at it is it's an ongoing struggle.
Yes, that's what I think.
And it's something that it's not unique to our time and place. Like, you even had, say, the French Revolution was not really about race. I don't think it was about race. I think it was about food, actually. But it was still about the haves and the have-nots, the privileged, the underprivileged. And there was a struggle there. And I mean the American Revolution,
Itself,
similar, I assume.
What's going on in Hong Kong?
Hong Kong
versus China.
So yeah, maybe now I'm just sort of connecting this. Perhaps that's one way of looking at it. Is she's running off. She's gone and done her little thing. She's gone back home. She's running, and it cuts. And okay, so it's an ongoing thing. It's something that will be struggled constantly.
Yeah, and I mean that's what the film does by leaving it open ended like that. Is you can think that, someone else can think, well, no, she's going to try to save her brother specifically. Someone else could think, no, she's going to try something totally different. Like, it leaves it open to that, doesn't it? As you said, the director wanted it to be continuous. So anyway, that kind of wraps us up. It'd be great to let us know what you think about this episode of our podcast and what you thought about See You Yesterday.
At Spacebrains Pod on Twitter, at Spacebrains Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, all right, so hit us up on all those things. Remember the Jamaican accents, please send it our way. And our next episode, we are going to number 25.
25,
it's a classic.
Classic alert.
Classic FM.
Yeah,
that's what we do because we said it in time.
We've got Classic FM on a podcast. What the hell?
So far we've done Alien, we've done 2001, we've done Predator, we've done Back to the Future.
And our fifth one is by popular request.
Oh, hashtag audience member.
Audience member. So thank you very much. You know who you are. I'm not going to mention your name.
I think you should mention names, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I haven't asked her if it's appropriate.
Okay. Well, you should for next episode.
Yes, I will. Event Horizon.
Ooh.
It's got our very own Sam Neill. And it's also got
Lawrence Fishburne.
I was going to say Morpheus. Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill together at last. In a wonderful... If you haven't seen Event Horizon, I'm not going to give you any spoilers now, but there will be plenty of spoilers in the episode. So go watch the movie and then really think about what's good and what's great, and then we'll tell you what we think.
Yeah, start hashtagging what you think about Event Horizon, which will be our next episode. So thank you very much, Surrey.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everybody else.
See ya.
Yep, see ya. Bye.